Whenever you're ready, I'll go off of your call. But I'll say to everybody who's here so far, thank you for being here. I'm Skylar O'Neill with the Grammy Museum, and we are excited to continue this partnership. It's been an amazing doing these programs online. We've done some in person as well too. So definitely want to thank Candace just for your support and putting these together. These are always amazing to host.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Skylar. We are grateful for our partnership with the Grammy Museum and to continue on with this programming that we do called Beyond the Main Stage, where we tap into different touring entities, platforms, producers, bookers, ticketing, box office, everyone that is a part of the ecosystem in the live music space. We like to bring them to this platform so that we could share the resources and the tools that we have in this space so that artists and independent producers can grow in their own endeavor. My name is Candace Newman, and I am the CEO and founder of Live Out Live. And today we have Gigwell with us. And the reason why I really was interested in having Gigwell present on this platform is because we had the Mint agency, we had the Mint agency present last week, and there were a lot of questions surrounding booking and really understanding the inner workings of how to book and the tools needed for that. And so I thought that a follow-up with Gigwell, an actual resource platform, might be resourceful and helpful for some of those follow-up questions. So I'm really excited to dive in. I'm going to hand over to Jeremie to go ahead and take the lead on guiding the conversation. I believe they have a presentation that they're going to share, and there will be a Q&A at the end of the session. So I'm going to stop there. Jeremie, take it away.
Perfect. Thanks, Candace. Definitely appreciate you guys inviting us here. Happy to kind of work through some of the different scenarios and questions that were sent to us earlier. I don't know, Heather, do you want to quickly give an intro and we can go from there?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Heather. Welcome to Self-Booking Tools and Resources. We are Gigwell, and in the next 40 minutes, we're hoping to share how to prepare to go on tours and how to book venues as an independent artist. We are so excited to be here with you today. Over the last 10 years, we have been researching successful booking practices from artists and booking agencies that are around the world. And over the last decade, we have built a technology that powers $2 billion in bookings worldwide. So we have a lot of insights from the past decade, and we're excited to share that all of our tips and insights from behind the curtain and help you discover the keys to booking gigs as an artist. So to give you a little overview of today's agenda, we'll start off by introducing ourselves. Then we'll answer common questions that people tip about booking a tour, and then we'll open up the floor for your question. We got a lot of info ahead, so I'm going to introduce myself, and then I'll hand it over to our co-founders. I'm Heather Wilde. I'm head of growth at Gigwell, and I help create libraries of guides, blogs, and content to empower artists and agencies to be booking rock stars. And I am very excited to share some booking tips with you today. So I'm going to hand it over to Jeremie and Antonio to introduce themselves too.
Thanks, Heather. Hi, everyone. My name is Jeremie. I'm a co-founder and CEO here at Gigwell. And yeah, happy to answer any questions that you guys have. We'll be covering a few kind of common questions, as Heather mentioned, and open it up for Q&A towards the end.
Hey everyone, thank you for having us. I'm Antonio. I'm a co-founder, and I'm also the head of customer success and customer support here at Gigwell. My job is to make sure all of our users are using Gigwell successfully. Over the last 10 years, I've worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of artists, agents, and agencies to optimize their booking workflow using Gigwell. So I'm pretty excited to be talking to you today.
Thanks so much. So let's jump right into the questions that we've prepared today. The first question that is commonly asked is, a lot of people say, all right, so what is Gigwell? How does it simplify the process of booking? Jeremie, what do you usually say to that question?
So we are a technology company. We build tools for live event bookings. So our platform helps to streamline the entire booking process. So if you think about everything that an artist does or an agent representing an artist does when selling to a talent buyer, from preparing assets like the EPK to sending out proposals to issuing contracts, collecting payments, managing all of the logistics, planning the tours, what are the anchor dates that might be on the tour, and how can we pick up, some additional dates on that tour to increase the ROI of that tour. So really everything that happens behind the scenes, from both a financial, legal, logistical standpoint, planning standpoint, all of that can be handled on our platform. A little bit about the company, as Heather mentioned, we were founded in 2013. All of us have backgrounds not only in tech, but also as talent buyers, as touring artists ourselves, as booking agents, as managers. So we've all worn many hats and been in your shoes. We today have offices in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Barcelona. So we were kind of international from day one. And we're supporting close to 3,200 booking agents, both independent and with larger clients such as Mint, as Candace mentioned earlier, in 50 plus countries. And we're actually closer to $3 billion in bookings now. So we've facilitated quite a bit of business through the platform over the years. And we've seen basically every deal type you can imagine, every, crazy type of transaction, from some of the largest stadium touring artists all the way down to kind of local and regional acts playing a local circuit. So we've kind of seen it all. Here's a few of our clients that we work with, and just some kind of high level stats. So there's Mint, as Candace mentioned earlier. We work with Liaison, the electronic music space, Major Artist Concert in the hip hop urban space, Empire, of course, Highbridge, KSR. We were started working with Cardi B early on, Magnus in the Latin space, really every different type of, industry genre that you can imagine. We're most likely working in that space to some capacity. And yeah, we're supporting, close to 63,000 touring artists. We've worked with almost 200,000 venues globally. So yeah, it's it's quite the cross section there. Cool. So
Thanks, Jeremie. Yeah, we have really been able to, over the last decade, we've really been able to work with a variety of booking agencies from across the globe. So we are very excited to share some of these tips from our years of experience in working with these agencies. Another question that we often get asked is, how do I know when the timing is right for me to go on tour? Antonio, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, happy to answer this. Well, there's a lot of different factors that we need to consider here. It really varies on, the artist, the type of music you produce, the stage of your career. For instance, a DJ that is pretty popular in your local area, and start expanding. Maybe you have a new album that is blowing up. Maybe that's when you start considering, start traveling, reaching out to your network of talent buyers and venues outside of your local area. So that's when you really start considering that. One thing that I always recommend when you're starting your music career is it's to start building a plan and build a strategy. You got to treat yourself like a company that is selling an amazing product. You are that product. You need to become an expert in marketing. You need to become, an expert in promoting your music, where you want to distribute your music. You got to learn more about your audience. You got to know what they like. All that stuff, it's about building a brand, building your identity, your product that I just spoke about. And I think at that point, that's when you're really ready to start branching out and reaching out to all these venues outside of your local. Once you have developed that audience in your town, that's really when you start planning a tour.
I completely agree. Jeremie, what would you say to artists who are wondering, what do I need to do to prepare to go on a tour? What do I need to have in mind when I'm about to embark on this huge piece of my music career?
Yeah, I mean, I think, kind of dovetailing on what Antonio was mentioning, a lot of it is just really kind of, your gut feeling, but, mixed in with some planning as well and some, being realistic with yourself. I think, every situation's different. I think every artist is at a different stage in their career, and then every genre and the type of artist that you are, is also gonna change the answer to this question. But I think, first and foremost, it's like, are you ready to tour? Are you physically ready to tour? Are you mentally, ready to tour? You know, going on tour can be very taxing. It can, it's super important to understand, are you in a physical position to jump on the road, and
Yeah.
it's quite tolling. The other thing is, there's some financial considerations as well. Depending on, if you're a DJ and you're just flying out to play a gig here and there, maybe not as much of a consideration, but like as a band that's maybe renting a van and a tour bus and instruments and, driving around, there's a pretty big financial burden there. So, have you really thought through what the costs are? What are the accommodation costs? What are, travels, meals? What happens if some of your gear breaks on the road? Having a budget for unforeseen expenses. Promotion and marketing, it's another thing. So, attracting fans in new cities can be challenging. How are you going to be reaching those fans and letting them know about your show? What are you leveraging there? Logistics, right? Like coordinating those dates can be challenging, making sure that, you're not double backing, like, playing a date in Austin, going back to California and then going back to Arizona. How do you kind of manage your logistics to reduce costs and make, have things make sense for you? And then, just making sure like you and your team are in good health, both physically and mentally, and able to kind of endure the challenges of being on the road. There's definitely mental health is a real consideration, finally kind of being brought to light more than it has been in previous years. And so it's great to see that. So I think those are all things that you should consider on top of, do I believe people are going to show up to come support us right now? And or am I opening up for a band that, already has a built-in follower base that I can tap into? So, there's a lot of considerations, and it really just varies from individual to individual.
And adding to that, I'd like to add another thing here that is part of the planning is building little milestones that you want to achieve while you're on tour, right? Like, you want to go to Arizona and perform. How many cities do you want to tackle there? How, what's the audience you want to grow there? And that's part of the, knowing your audience, knowing where you want to go. If you have like 200 fans in Arizona, what's your goal? What is the goal you're trying to achieve if you go there?
Yeah.
Expand your network, expand your audience, building more relationships with the venues in that particular state or area. So I think that's part of that planning that Jeremie's talking about, and being mentally ready to, to tackle all those milestones.
And I'd say like another thing too is a lot of people always think about, oh, I want to play LA, I want to play New York, I want to play Austin, all these big music cities, but there's so many secondary, tertiary markets that are starving for music, right? And ultimately they don't get as much attention. And if you're starting out, it might be a good idea to target some of those markets and get your name out in some of those, kind of less, smaller ponds, so to speak, because you'll probably have better success connecting with promoters, creating relationships. And a lot of those people end up moving to larger markets and remembering the relationship that they have with you. This is all really about relationship building and network building. So, ultimately, when you're ready to start your outreach, even if somebody isn't ready to book you right away, they might be ready to book you, next year when you've grown a little bit more. They start hearing about you, hearing a buzz about you through other friends and colleagues. So, it's really important to kind of, focus on those things as well.
And make sure your show is good, so they book it again.
Yeah.
Make sure your music is good, you know?
Absolutely. All right, next question.
This is a question that I actually wish more people would ask us, because it's the question that deserves to be asked more, and it sometimes gets missed. What materials do artists need to have ready before reaching out to venues, bookers, and promoters? And what I would say is, before reaching out to venues, artists need to have a polished, professional digital EPK ready. So let's talk a little bit about an artist EPK, or an electronic press kit. That is your music resume that all music industry professionals will use to learn about you as an artist and as your brand. This is the tool that you're going to be using for introducing yourself to promoters, agents, journalists, supervisors, talent advisors. In the competitive world of music, it is the smallest details that can make you stand out from other artists. And that is why a really polished professional EPK is so critical. It basically embodies your brand. And speaking as a digital marketer, this is how you market yourself as an artist. This is the instrument that you're using to secure more live shows. So a lot of people have picked up here and there an idea of what their EPK should look like, but we have a few tips of things that oftentimes get missed in EPK. Starting with the basics, the importance of your music cannot be overstated. We recommend prioritizing your top 3 tracks at the start. And when it comes to picking those top 3 tracks, consider what your fans have said about your tracks, what are your streaming statistics, or just what really stands out to you as representing your brand and your sound as an artist. But then instead of having a link that people have to click to go off your EPK, you want to make it as short and sweet as possible for them to really know your sound as an artist in a couple seconds. So embed those SoundCloud links into your EPK. Have your YouTube videos embedded so they can hear your tracks and watch your videos right there from your digital EPK. And that's a really important thing that I often see missing from a lot of those EPK PDF templates online, where it just creates a template that's an attachment and you can't hear music from an attachment PDF. When it comes to choosing your songs, I also recommend that you gather your overall plays from streaming platforms like Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Music, as well as social platforms like TikTok, YouTube, or Reels. I find that some artists will have a song that takes off on TikTok, and there's more momentum on social, but then they might choose only the songs that took off on TikTok and not consider the other songs that are representative of their streaming platforms. If you select a variety of your most played songs from different platforms, then it demonstrates that your music has range across all platforms, not just TikTok. Then let's talk about your bio for a moment. Your bio is so important because it's the way that you get to describe yourself as an artist. What makes you different from other artists? If writing isn't your strength when it comes to writing your bio, you can hire a music writer from websites like Fiverr or Upwork, or you can ask your friends to help describe how they see you as an artist and what your brand means to them. But the bio is one of those rare opportunities where you get to define yourself on your own terms. So really lean into that bio and don't use words like incredible or great. Like, really lean into what makes you unique. Then past press. If you have past press, I recommend, of course, put that in your EPK, but a lot of beginning artists don't have past press. However, they have devoted fans, and you can quote your devoted fans and put that in your EPK in place of press. Now, a tip that we have is, we notice a lot of artists will put their personal phone number or their personal email address in the contact section of their EPK. And that looks really unprofessional, and it requires extra steps for a talent buyer to contact you. Now they have to paste that into an email, and it makes it cumbersome for the talent buyer. So at the very minimum, as an artist and a business, your email address should come from a branded domain, such as inquiries@artistname.com. You can buy one off of Google Domains. But even better, we recommend that you have an embedded booking form so that talent buyers can get in touch with you just by filling out the booking inquiry that's embedded in your EPK. It takes away the extra steps that's required for them to inquire about your availability, and it makes it really easy to generate more booking inquiries faster. It helps you get more gigs because it just makes it that much easier for them to get in touch with you. So that's your EPK, but there's another document that's really, really important before you pitch talent buyers, and that is your venue research doc. See, once you have your EPK, a lot of artists think, all right, I'm ready to go, and they jump straight into researching venues and reaching out to them and cold emailing and cold calling them. But if you bombard every single venue in your area with a generic pitch, it's going to do more harm than good to you as an artist. Because the truth is, talent buyers have seen it all, and they can easily separate the serious applicants from those who are just firing off emails willy-nilly. So there is a very crucial list that you need before you begin cold emailing venues, and that is your venue targeted list. This can just be a Google Doc or a Google Sheet. It does not have to be complicated, but this is where you research venues and keep track of the venues that you've reached out to. So the more research that you put into your venue outreach, the more you're going to stand out as a great fit for the venue. This is really how you can separate and differentiate yourself from other people who are reaching out to venues too. So the things that you're going to be researching are things like the booking agent's name, the venue capacity, and their event calendar. And if you don't fit the bill, then just move on, because you only get one shot at a first impression. A tool that really helps you to do this research is you can use Indie on the Move, you can use Polestar, or we recommend using Gigwell IQ because Gigwell's Tour IQ, because that has all the contact information in one place. It makes it really easy to filter venues, and it's like having access to contacts in the music industry where you can find their first name, their email address, their phone number, and you can reach out to them directly. So let's talk a little bit more about the research part, because this is so important to you as an artist. And I really want to make sure that this is something that is understood really clearly to help you stand out as an artist. So I always recommend that you experience the venue firsthand. Before you even think about reaching out, go to that venue, spend an evening there absorbing the live music scene to get a sense of the atmosphere, to mingle with other artists and bands, and get a little bit of information on how the place is set up. You're going to want to identify the vibes of the music. Does your musical style as an artist align with the venue's lineup? Do they showcase different genres on different nights? That's something you're going to need to know if you're reaching out to them. And perhaps they have different bookers to curate each night's act. That's something else you're going to want to figure out. You need to recognize which booker is booking the acts that are in your genre of music. So do your homework, find out which contact will vibe with your sound, and put this into your spreadsheet. You can also find similar artists that you know perform in your area. This is really helpful because you can find, if there's an artist who has a similar sound to you, they're in the same genre, you can go on Bands in Town, see a list of all their past shows and the venues that they played at, and then you can add those venues to your list, because odds are those artists have probably found a couple of spots that weren't on the front page of Google. So that helps you get, it's more of a roundabout way of doing venue research based on other artists who are in your sound. Then your last step is you want to identify who holds the keys to your live performance stream, which is the venue booker. So I mentioned earlier, you can use Gigwell's Tour IQ. If you don't want to use Gigwell's Tour IQ, you can search through Google or the venue's official website. And if you hit a dead end, you can always pick up the phone, give the venue a call, and politely and nicely ask for the booker's name and contact info, and then add that to your spreadsheet. And then the last step is just remember to add columns to your spreadsheet where you can keep track of when you reached out, what the date that you emailed the talent buyer, and you can set a reminder to follow up so that you know exactly when you've reached out to all the venues that are your dream venues, and when you can follow up. So based on all this research, the next question is, well, how do I reach out to venues?
Yeah, and just to add to what Heather was saying as well. I mean, I think those are all great tips, and you know, can't stress the importance of doing that research ahead of time. I mean, I think the number one complaint that we get from venues is that they just get bombarded with emails from artists that are completely irrelevant to what they do, right? Like they're getting rock bands emailing them at like a DJ nightclub, or they get, you know, singer-songwriter, you know, acts that are reaching out to a rock club. Like they haven't done their research and it's obvious. Ultimately, you know, can't stress the importance of, you know, you're creating a network here, right? These are people that you're probably going to work with for years to come. And so ultimately you want to make a good lasting impression with them, but you also, you know, want to curate a network of people that you can tap into and leverage to, you know, find other dates and other gigs. And most talent buyers know other talent buyers in different markets, so they can help you if they like you and you know, you put on a great show, they're going to help you find other gigs as well, so you can leverage that also. So yeah, super important to do your research. I know it's not the most fun part of the process, but it is the most important. And so, you know, doing all of that work ahead of time, you know, using tools as Heather mentioned, Songkick, Bands in Town, doing all of that is super crucial. It's kind of a shortcut to finding the right type of venues and the right type of buyers, and then cross-referencing that with a resource like Indie on the Move or Tour IQ could easily, you know, help you build out that list without spending too much time, you know, going through every venue out there. So we actually have a guide that we wrote, a step-by-step guide on how to prospect using some of these tools, including our own and some other, you know, free and paid tools out there. And we'll include that in the resources page in this deck so you guys can go back and review. So.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremie. So the next question that people often ask is they say, okay, but how do I reach out to venues? Like, how do I stand out if I'm just one person out of a sea of 100 emails that talent buyer will receive that day? So one of Gigwell's artists was successful and shared this tip with us. They said, look, if you're looking to play at a spot that usually has multiple bands on the lineup, make it easy for the talent buyer. Instead of cold emailing and being like, here's my music, when are you available? Okay, well, I mean, with all the love in the world, why should they care? Make it so easy for them, like help them do their job. And that's what gets them excited. So put together your own list of bands for the night and then pitch it as a package deal for the date that you want to play. When it comes to crowd size, be optimistic, but you need to keep it real. You need to be honest. Nothing is more of a turnoff than promising a crowd of 50 people and only being able to bring 20. So let's say, for example, you've got 2 folks in the band and each can bring along 5 or so friends and family and coworkers. Well, that already gives you 15 people. So don't promise 30 people and then show up with just 15, because that's a really good way to make talent buyers not trust you next time. So aim for a venue or a time where drawing 15 people is totally cool, and then give it your all to bring in more, like 20 or 30 or even 40. If you do it that way, chances are they're going to want you back, and maybe even a better time slot or a better venue. I found that a lot of bands will offer to open for someone and they think that would be a good foot in the door. It actually works in the opposite way, and it says you have no credentials or connections and probably won't bring in much of a crowd. So if you want to open for someone, the key is talk to the band, not the venue. If you ask the venue to stick you on a bill, you probably won't hear back unless they have a cancellation or something like that. And even then, they probably have other bands on their short list for cancellations. So the biggest key to playing shows is knowing other bands who will play with you. Network with other artists. This is why we recommend going to venues before you even reach out, because you can meet those bands, you can meet those artists. Try to attach yourself to someone with a bigger draw that you can piggyback on. We have a few pro tips. Pro tip 1, I already mentioned, honesty wins. Don't ever exaggerate your audience draw. Tip 2 is remember This is the hard truth that no one wants to hear, but remember, you're there to help the venue sell drinks, not just play great music. So fill it with people, tell your friends to buy drinks, over deliver what you promise, and the venues are going to want you back. And then also tip 3, keep your cold email short. Talent buyers are swamped with emails, so get to the point quickly. If you can't explain why someone should book you, why you're different, and why your music is a good investment in a few sentences, it's unlikely that they're going to finish reading the email. So the point of the pitch, it's not to get you a show. It's not to get you a label deal. It's not to get you a sponsor. The point of a pitch is to create enough interest for them to want more information about you. So get those future deeper conversations about the deal you want by getting the interest going in the email. Our last tip, again, you're talking to a marketer here. So if you're really trying to get your foot in the door with the new venue, offer to pay for marketing. You can offer in your email, hey, if you book us, we will launch an online marketing campaign that will reach 50,000 music fans within 20 miles of your venue. And then actually deliver this by spending about $50 on Facebook ads. And this can make a huge difference in standing out and landing your very first gig at a venue. Any other tips that you'd add, Jeremie or Antonio?
Antonio is a talent buyer, so.
I think all those tips are amazing, and this is part of like, being an expert in marketing and promoting yourself, that I was talking about earlier on, that you need to learn all this. It's not just music nowadays, unfortunately, unless you do that mega hit, right? Or unless you have a lot of material and you've been in the industry for so long. Nowadays, you got to be an expert at everything that goes around the music career, right? Marketing, social media, distribution, talking to labels, talking to venues, like, that's where it all comes down. And I think that your tips were pretty amazing. But what about after the gig, Heather? What happens after the gig?
After the gig. Okay, here's our bonus tip. After your gig is over, collect email addresses from attendees. This is so important. As an artist, build an email mailing list. And you're probably thinking, okay, that's so backwards. In the age of social media, I want followers. When's the last time you put your full trust in the Instagram algorithm and it worked out well for you? Because as a marketer, it doesn't always work out well for me. So it is far more powerful for you to fans will come out to another gig, and you can use email because it's a more reliable way of reaching your fans, getting them excited, sending them notices and newsletters saying, hey, I'm playing this other show. And that's how you keep your core fan audience engaged. And you're not depending on an algorithm that might not boost your fans when you need it boosted most. So what you can do is you can also collect emails by offering a free download in exchange as an incentive. You can offer business cards with free codes from Bandcamp or free downloads, and you collect emails they can scan a QR code, you get their email address, they get a free download, and that's how you build your fan mailing list.
Another thing to add there is, if you're performing for an audience that they don't know who you are, especially if you're opening for a band, let's say you're doing a gig exchange or something like that, make sure you tell them who you are. Make sure you say, we are band X.
Yeah.
Spell it big, clear, and
How
loud.
many people don't do that?
Exactly. You're just talking to a new audience, and like that's how people discover music nowadays.
Yeah.
I go to a concert, I see who the opener is, I'm like, I have no clue who they are.
Yeah.
But then like they play the first song, second track, I'm like, oh, these guys are really good, I'm gonna follow them on Instagram or TikTok or whatever the new social media is. So, make sure that whenever you're performing, you always say who you are, introduce your bandmates, say it clear and loud, and, you even spell it for them, or wear a shirt with like Gigwell, like That's what it's all about.
Or your band name, you know, it could be your band name. Doesn't have
Yeah,
to be.
that's what I meant. That's what I meant.
But yeah, I mean, like
Thanks for a Gigwell shirt.
yeah. No, but that's a really good point. I think, you know, how many times have we all been to shows and, you know, the opener kills it, maybe even more than the headliner, and but you don't know who their name is, and you ask the person next to you and they
Right.
don't know either. So it's like that's such a missed thing, and people are just like, oh, if I just go and, you know, crush it at my set, then, you know, I'm gonna get booked again. And it's like, well, nobody knows who you are. You haven't given them an easy way to get in touch with you. So you know, that's super crucial. But one thing, Antonio, that you mentioned was gig exchanges. Touch on that again really quickly, because that's another way to get more gigs.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, all about expanding your network and getting new fans and reaching to other, you know, areas, other states is, you know, talking and meeting new bands. Like, go to shows in your local area from bands that are similar to yours, that have similar audience, get to meet them, and then perhaps you can do a gig exchange. Maybe next time you already have a really good local following, you're really good, you know, you have a really good relationship with the local venues. That's when you can start reaching out to these bands and say, hey, you know, like, I want to bring you here to San Francisco. I know this venue, I can bring like 200 people. That's what usually goes to our gig. And then you can ask for a gig exchange, right? So it's kind of like a trading cards there, and you know, it would be beneficial for the other band. It's beneficial to you to go to a new area and expand your network in that particular area. And you know, that I guess if that's okay with you, Heather, if you don't have anything to add to that, you know, after the gig, what happens, I would like to go into the different how to negotiate the deal, and you know, the different deal types that you guys need to know. So, you know, after you book your first gig, at the beginning, it's going to be very simple, right? You know, somebody's going to offer you either a small flat guarantee where the venue doesn't have a lot of like a risk, or maybe a split of the door. So you have to learn the different terminology, the language that the talent buyer or the booker speaks. You know, this is part of learning how to negotiate a gig. There's many different deal types that are, you know, venues are getting really creative, especially after the pandemic. You know, they're starting to get creative with deals. So there's not a lot of risk for the venue, but there's a lot of upside for the artist. You know, there's not a lot of like upfront money that they need to send to the artist, but they can potentially make a lot more money during the event, depending on how many people they bring. I actually have a document that I'm going to be sharing with the presentation. I'll share the link with you guys in a minute, with all the description of all these deal types. But basically, the most common for someone that is starting, especially if you're an opener band and you're touring with a headliner, they're likely going to offer you a small flat guarantee, you know, that includes travel and and accommodation. Maybe they're renting a bus together and you're sleeping in the bus. That happens, you know, that's how everybody starts. You know, there's also a door deal where the venue has no risk, and they're saying, you know, we're just going to give you 50% of the door, 100% of the door. You know, sometimes it's after expenses. You know, maybe they have to pay for the person that is collecting cash at the door, right? And they say, I'll give you 100% of the door after we pay $100 to that person. And then as your career grows, as you grow as an artist, you can start getting also a little bit more creative with the deals. There's a plus percentage, you know, once you have a little bit more bookings in the pipeline, you can start asking for a guarantee plus a percent of the door, or plus a ticket bonus after X amount of tickets sold. So there's a lot of like different deal types that you guys need to learn, that you guys need to have some knowledge how they work. So I'll share that really good document with you guys in the presentation, so you can take a look and see all the terminology. What is you know, gross potential, adjusted gross, net potential, all that terminology on back-end deals and ticket scaling deals.
Yeah, and somebody in the chat mentioned something about pay to play. I mean, I think, you know, you want to stay away from venues that are asking you for money to
Right.
perform. That's not really the type of venue you typically want to play for. But, you know, a door deal or a door split is pretty common where they don't guarantee you anything, but they say, hey, you know, like after we meet our staff expenses or whatever, we'll give you guys 20% of all of the tickets that are sold. Or,
Right.
you know, we'll give you a ticket link that you can share with your followers or your attendees. And whoever uses that link to purchase a ticket, you know, we're going to give you 100% of that revenue or whatever it is. And, you know, that should be used obviously to cover your expenses and hopefully, you know, put some money in your pocket. So, you know, and your deals, as Antonio mentioned, they will get better as you grow your following and as you get more established and, you know, all of that, then you can kind of start dictating terms a little bit more, and have things that are more favorable to the artist. But yeah, we'll share the most common deal types. I would say, you know, generally as a rule of thumb, if a venue is asking you for money to perform, that's probably not the kind of venue you want to play at. So
I definitely agree.
Yep.
all right.
So, Jeremie, tell us a little bit about the Artist Essentials package. We're really excited about this. We mentioned this a little bit earlier in the presentation, but we want to quickly go over it because this is something we're excited about.
Yeah, so we're actually about to launch a new product for artists on November 1st that does cover a lot of the pain points that we covered today. If most of you guys know, you know, typically or the last decade or so, we've been really focused on tools for booking agencies and management companies and kind of larger organizations, but we're finally launching a tool kit that's specifically for artists. And so it's basically kind of everything you need to manage a tour in one place. So it'll come with, you know, an EPK builder, so you can build, you know, professional, polished, interactive EPK. It'll come with our venue database for, you know, start making connections with venues that are under 250 capacity. And then it'll come with all the tools needed to, you know, send out a contract or collect a payment electronically. And so the EPK, as Heather kind of outlined so elegantly earlier, is super important. It's really your online digital resume. It's your highlight reel. It's, you know, all the important things that a buyer needs to make a purchasing decision in one place. And you really want that to be kind of polished and professional. A lot of people don't know how to do that. They don't know what tools are there. So we've created kind of a drag and drop template where you just can load up all of your links for your social media content. You can link it to your bands in town. You can upload your press photos. You can add your bio. It brings everything together and it's cloud-based. So instead of sending an email with like 25 different links of where all of your content lives, you just send them one link and it has all the information that a buyer needs right then and there. It can also be embedded in your Instagram, you know, your Instagram bio, so on and so forth. So all the information is there. It has a request form built in as well. So if they're interested in booking you, they just click that book now button, enter in their details, and then that creates a new inquiry that gets emailed out to you so that you can follow up with. And then the beautiful thing about it is you don't really need, you know, a designer or a web developer to help you build all of that. We've kind of done that work for you. You just plug in your content and off you go. The other thing that I mentioned, which it includes, is Tour IQ, which is our venue database. So we're going to basically include access to contacts for venues that are under 250 capacity. So that's, you know, bars, hotels, nightclubs, restaurants. You basically can put in, you know, whatever market you want to look at. Let's say you want to look at venues within 5 miles of downtown Los Angeles. You can just put that, and you want venues between 100 and 250 capacity. So it'll basically refine all of those venues, show those to you on a map, and then you can drill into each one to get detailed information about the venue. You can see images of the venue, you can see where it's located on a map, and then you can see a directory of all of the talent buyer contacts there. So, you know, who's the person there that I need to reach out to if I'm interested in booking a gig. So this is a great research tool. We kind of touched on it earlier. It's not the only one that's out there. There's a million, you know, tools out there that you can use, but it is the most comprehensive. in terms of just bringing all of the information that you need together in one place. And it's specifically people that are booking musicians and live entertainers. So it's a great tool to start building your network. And then the last piece that we have is the booking toolkit. And so that's really about just, once you now have interest, you sent the EPK out, you have the contact, you've built your targeted list, and people are interested in booking you, it's going to manage that entire booking workflow. So all of those inquiries that start coming in from your booking form, hopefully you can respond to those. Hey, this sounds great. Let me send you a proposal. Let me send you a contract. So it allows you to generate contracts. We have a contract template library built in. So if you don't know what a live entertainment booking contract looks like, you don't need to worry about that. It's already built into the system. Same thing with proposal templates, same thing with invoicing template. So all of those guidelines are kind of built into the tool already, and you can just kind of plug and play and kind of manage everything. So think of it as like a CRM research tool, digital EPK, kind of all wrapped into one. What we believe, is the essential kind of toolkit for an artist. So that's going to be launching November 1st. If you guys are interested, we did put together a code for $100 off. If you want to scan that and enter your information, we'll give you guys early access. So whoever's interested, let us know. Any Live Out Live followers can basically get access to the discount. We've also included all of the resources and links that we talked about today. So there's a couple articles that were written. I wrote one of them on kind of detailed prospecting, how to do that. And then there's a few other ones from some really great sources from, Lander, Bandzoogle, Indie on the Move. The deal structure PDF that Antonio mentioned earlier is in there as well. So we'll send the link. I don't know, did you guys send the link? Yeah, we'll send the link to the Live Out Live team as well, and they can email it out to you. But it'll have all the information we covered today in the presentation, as well as links to those really valuable resources for you guys to review. And then, we love talking about this stuff, as you can tell. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. info@gigwell.com goes to all three of us, and we're happy to follow up and respond to any questions that anybody has. Cool.
We have about 10 minutes left, so we wanted to open the floor to answer any of your questions. I do see one question in the chat, but I want to pause for a quick moment. Can we go until 11? Is that all right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we have 10 more minutes to go until 11. And if anyone has questions, we'd love for you to raise your hand, and Heather can call on you guys. If you can come on screen and ask the question directly to the team, that will be helpful. Or drop them in the chat and we'll read them there. But we'd love to hear from you.
I see one question in the chat. What do you consider an average number of followers local bands should have on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or otherwise known as X, and YouTube? I can take this question. I want to start by emphasizing that there are some artists who have 10, 15, 20K followers, but they're not active, they're not engaged, they're not involved in the artist's journey as a musician. And when they are saying, hey guys, I'm playing over at Hotel Cafe, or I'm playing over on Sunset Strip, crickets, you hear nothing. So an engaged audience, no matter how small, is always more valuable than a big inflated number. But I'd also be lying to you if I told you that your following on socials isn't important to talent buyers, because they do look at that. So what I would recommend is that you focus on telling your story as an artist. Use Reels, TikTok, other video tools to post on platforms, because those do really well in the algorithms, and it can help you be seen and get discovered by a larger audience. And focus on telling your artist story and connecting with people, because you can even tell talent buyers in your email, I have 5,000 followers, but they are engaged. They show up to my shows, they buy drinks, and they always roll up to support me. And that is music to a talent buyer's ears, more than 20K followers, but they can't even be bothered to like your next reel that you post. So focus on telling your brand story. And in terms of averages, sometimes it's 5K, sometimes it's 20K, sometimes it's 50K. But again, the most important thing is, can you deliver when you say that you can fill a venue? And if you can, that's what's setting you apart as an artist.
I want to follow up in the pay to play. I know Alex sent a comment there about, that's what most venues are doing in the Sunset Strip. And, this goes back to the venue having no risk whatsoever. And I think if you know that your music is good and you know that you can bring some people, I think you have to have a little bit more pride on what you do. And I think there's a million venues. Obviously, everybody wants to play the Sunset Strip. Everybody wants to go to Viper Room or Roxy. There's a million other venues that will pay you a guarantee or a percent of the door rather than you struggling and becoming the promoter for the venue. And I think it's great at the beginning, but that clearly states that the venue is really not caring about the music, but and it's just like they're just risking it. And I think, in my opinion, you have to have a little bit more pride in what you do and know that you're good, and bookings will follow. The audience will follow. Money will follow. Is just the it's everybody in the mix has to have a little bit of risk when we're talking about bookings, especially if you're somebody that already has some material out there and a good following base.
Yeah, and I mean, you're not going to make money on every single gig. Like,
right.
It's impossible.
Right.
There's going to be somewhere you're upside down, and that's ultimately kind of part of the journey. Like at the beginning, especially if it's a market you really want to play, or that you feel like the upside is going to be good for you, or it's establishing a longer term relationship for you. So all of the situations are different. You got to wait out for yourself, but ultimately, it's really about just weighing all those things out. And that's why, a lot of the planning stuff that we talked about earlier is so crucial.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, bars and venues and nightclubs, they're there to sell drinks and sell tickets and make money, right? So as long as you kind of remember that, obviously they're all fans to begin with. You don't get into that role without being a fan first. Like all of those people love music. They're devoted their lives to it. They want to be the first person to discover a new band. But at the same time, they're also bombarded with a million different inquiries. And so how do they kind of sift through, to find that diamond in the rough, right? So you want to make that easy for them.
We were asked, how does Gigwell compare to Indie on the Move, and what sets it apart? You want to take this one, Jeremie?
Yeah. So Indie on the Move is a great resource. They're actually one of the sources that we use to populate Tour IQ, along with Polestar, Resident Advisor, Celebrity Access, Google Places, all different. We have about 12 different data sources that we aggregate. But what sets us apart is really, we have essentially a resource that aggregates all that information. We have a wider range of different types of venues. So they're not just like indie rock venues. It's like hotels and rooftops and jazz bars and jazz clubs and all different types of inventory in there. And then the other thing is ours is really the visualization of how it works. You guys probably saw in some of the screenshots, but it kind of works like Yelp, where you're like, oh, I want Chinese food within 5 miles of where I live. It's kind of the same thing. You just put in a zip code or a location. You say, this is the type of venue that I want to find. It shows you all of those on a map, and then you can drill into each one to get detailed information instead of just seeing a list. Whereas like Indie on the Move or Pulsar is kind of like opening a phone book. You got to say like, all right, this is what I'm looking for, and you might be able to find the information in there. But if you don't know what you're looking for, it's not as user-friendly in that sense. So I would say, to answer your question on that, the contacts database, that's the comparison. But then we do much more than that, as you saw. We do the EPK stuff. We do the whole booking management stuff, the contracting, the invoicing, the payments, the logistics. We're really more of like a full, top to bottom, like full stack booking and touring solution. Whereas Indie on the Move just does that one component, which is really, contacts the different indie venues, that kind of stuff. So but a great resource. You should use both.
Yeah, definitely. Another question, can you talk about selling merch at shows, what the venue's involvement with that may be?
Yeah, I can take this one. So there's really two types of merchandise that usually bands have, which is hard merchandise, which is all recording merchandise, right? Like vinyl, CDs, DVDs, if they exist now, but I've seen cassettes lately. And soft merchandise, bandanas, wristbands, t-shirts, sweatshirts. Usually it really depends who is selling the merchandise. So if the venue is providing someone to sell it for you, they usually get a higher percentage of the merchandise rate sales. But if you have your own, area or your own tables and personal selling the merchandise, is usually a lower percentage. On recorded goods, we never recommend, everybody's different, but we never recommend giving any percent whatsoever. So usually what you see, it's 100% to the artist on hard merchandise, and maybe 90% of soft goods like shirts and stuff like that. So you give a 10% to the venue just to have a little space so you can sell the merchandise. I've seen some reverts as well, like if artist sells is the 190, if venue sells it's 90-80 or something like that. So there's definitely some negotiation that needs to happen there. But if you're worked so hard on recorded goods and hard merchandise, can give a percent of that. Maybe t-shirts.
Well, especially if you're selling it yourself, most of the time, especially smaller venues, the artist or the band sells, and that's also a good place to connect with your band or with your fans rather. Some of the larger venues, the venue will staff it, and then that's usually when they'll take a percentage because they've got to pay for whoever the merch person is. But yeah, for the
I saw a comment there from Amanda, and that's true. I think one of the Live Nation recent things that they do and to kind of like help artists is they're not getting a cut on the merchandise. I think I read that recently, so that is true. So Live Nation, I think, is relaxing and not taking a cut on merchandise rates. So
hopefully I'll take less ticket fees soon as well.
I know. They're adding it as a fee on the ticket sales.
Yeah, exactly.
And on the concessions, because they own and operate the venue too.
Exactly.
So they're getting
Right.
ancillary. They're getting their cut. They're like, we'll just bump up the cuts in other areas.
Exactly. Triple dipping.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I want to thank Gigwell for participating in today's panel and for such a great, resourceful conversation. Very detailed. Heather, great tips. Antonio, thank you so much for all the booking and talent buying tools. And Jeremie, just the overall overview of Gigwell is amazing. I really hope that our community taps into some of the resources that you guys have. I see that, Heather, you mentioned that you guys normally do workshops around booking gigs, independent artists. So I really encourage everyone to lean in and connect further with Gigwell, and to also take advantage of the new platform. Amazing resource. One, me as a booking producer definitely see true value in. So I encourage everyone to connect further with Gigwell. And I just want to thank you guys immensely. Do you guys want to leave out with any information other than, I know you shared your social for the future workshops, but anything in particular that you want to share before we leave today? Gigwell?
No, I think we're good. I mean, we'll send you guys a link to the deck if you want to distribute that. And there's a bunch of helpful resources for everybody that I think they can take away. But apart from that, yeah, thanks for having us. Really appreciate it.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you all. Candace, I know we have some more sessions coming up. So thank you all who joined today. We'll continue to keep you updated on the next one. November, you know that date off the top of your head?
That's right. I believe it's November 7th.
November 7th week will be the next one. So we'll continue these. And yeah, these are always amazing. I appreciate you. Thank you, Gigwell, and all of the panelists who came and spoke today. And we'll see you guys next time.
Great.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Candace.
Good day.